Long ago, before Snake Eyes and Kashtira, duelists around the world would be introduced into a game with products called structure decks. For a time, they were lost until a young boy, well, an old guy, decided to reveal it in a video that you're watching right now. Hey everyone, this is Tombox, and the new and exciting structure deck Blue Eyes White Destiny is here. We're gonna crack open to see what's inside, as well as share with you a personal build that I would play myself. Launch dates are February 12th for the OTS and general launch for February 14th. Enough of me yapping, hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and let's go. So this is what the box looks like from the front. This is the side, and this is the back. And this is what we can see from the back here, that there's, hey, Blue Eyes White Dragons. There's a lot of multiples in here and a lot of fancy cards. Since this is the 25th anniversary, they're going to include a little bit of a quarter century sparkle in each of these decks. In addition to the 50 card decks, you're also going to get a bonus card in there, which can be the Maiden of White, Wishes for Eyes of Blue, or the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Those three cards are already included in the deck, but you'll get an additional copy as a secret rare. And there's even a chance that it could even be a quarter century secret rare. Well, let's see what I get. Let's take a closer look at each and every one of these. So these are the secret rare versions of, this is the Maiden of White. I'll go over the card effects once I get into the deck list. There's also the Wishes for Eyes of Blue. Just look at that shine. So you can, yeah, definitely, you're able to just rarity bump and rarity upgrade to your heart's desire. And we have, of course, the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Wow, this is very, very shiny, I have to say it. Maybe you guys will get lucky and get the quarter century secret rare version. So let's take a closer look at these cards here. So we have Indigo Eyes Silver Dragon, a rank 8 Xyz monster that cannot attack directly unless it has a normal monster as a material. So based off of this structure deck, it's going to be the Blue Eyes White Dragon that needs to be attached underneath. Now you can only use each of the following effects of Indigo Eyes Silver Dragon once per turn. If this card is Xyz summoned, so when you summon it properly the very first time, you can negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent controls. Did I read that right? All face-up cards your opponent currently controls. Yep, that's right. That's really good. That ultimately just turns off the entirety of your opponent's field so that you're able to go for massive damage. And you can detach one material from this card, then target one normal monster in your graveyard or banishment, special summon, and if you do, it gains 1,000 attack points. Wow, that is really, really strong. I mean, if you count the math here, it's about 8,000 damage between the monster you summon, which is the Blue Eyes White Dragon, gaining an additional 1,000, and the 4,000 coming from this monster. So you negate their entire field, and you also push for about 8,000 damage along the way. So this card is a game finisher. Next card, we have Spirit with Eyes of Blue, a Link 1 Dragon. We all love our Link 1 Dragons, and we all know Link 1s are extremely powerful at bridging all sorts of different plays. Spirit with the Eyes of Blue, requiring a level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster monster. Very open to the recipe here. That's really good because don't forget, the Blue Eye strategy does use a lot of light level 1 spellcaster tuner monsters, so this is probably within that same theme. And you cannot special summon except dragon monsters. So it starts off with a restriction here, so you're locked into dragon while this card is on the field. So if this card is removed from the field, you will no longer be locked under that restriction. So being a Link 1, what makes this one so powerful? Do you search cards? I believe you do. If this card is Link Summon, you get to add one Mausoleum of White from your deck, either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Now, Mausoleum of White also has a graveyard-based effect, but we'll get to those cards once we get there. And you can tribute this card, special summon one Blue Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard. But if you special summon an effect monster from your graveyard, by this effect, it cannot attack and its effects are also negated. So you are special summoning out, say, your Blue Eyes White Dragon, but you can also go for like the Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon. Wow, this card is really, really good, considering that if you get to the Mausoleum of White, it will bridge into summoning out a Blue Eyes monster because of what the Mausoleum of White offers. But we'll get to that in a second, okay? And this is Maiden of White. Now, we saw the card earlier in the secret rare form, so what does she do here? A light level 1 spellcaster tuner monster as a part of the Blue Eye strategy. So, what does she bring to the table? Well, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, place one True Light from your hand, deck, or graveyard, face up into your spell and trap zone. So this is going to be your way to recur and directly place True Light, the trap card, onto the field, the continuous trap card. Now, if you special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon while this card is in the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon out this card. So she special summons herself out from the graveyard. So by paying the cost to put this card into the graveyard, by summoning out a Blue Eyes, she will summon herself back onto the field, ultimately giving you a tuner and a Blue Eyes White Dragon at the same time. So that can further push the strategy. We're going to see where this is actually going to go. When a card or effect is activated to target this card on the field, or when this card is targeted for an attack, quick effect, you can special summon one Blue Eyes White Dragon or one level 1 light tuner from your graveyard. So just by targeting this card, you're going to be able to generate additional monsters by special summoning them from the graveyard. And luckily, you can even go for the tuner monster in case you are missing tuners. Next, we have Wishes for Eyes of Blue. This is an incredible card. Discard one card for cost. You get to add one level 1 light tuner and one spell or trap card that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to your hand, except for Wishes for Eyes of Blue. So you can't just search this card and get another card. That's a little crazy. Now, you can banish this card from your graveyard and target one Blue Eyes White Dragon you control. Equip one Blue Eyes monster from your extra deck as an equipped spell and give it 400 attack. This actually synergizes with a future strategy we'll talk about in a second once we get to those monsters. Next, we have the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon, another new card, and this is a level 12 synchro monster requiring 2 or more tuner monsters, including one non-tuner Blue Eyes monster. So it's one Blue Eyes, and then you can have as many tuners as you need to summon out this monster. Okay, that's fine. Now, your opponent cannot banish cards from your graveyard. That's the first effect, and that's the continuous effect. So we're locking our graveyard from our opponent banishing it. That means Bestial Magnuma, Druis Worm, anything along that family that would banish something out of your graveyard, including like DD Crow. Your opponent can't do that anymore. So that's great. Now, you can use each of the following effects of Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon once per turn. Now, I've heard great things about this card, which includes when a card or effect is activated on the field, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, this card gains 1,000 attack points. So that's very, very strong, pushing this to 4,500. And on top of this, the second effect is if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a light dragon from your graveyard, except for the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. So you can summon back, say, your Blue Eyes White Dragon, your Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, and if you summon this card via, say, the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, there's a good chance that this card could destroy itself during the end phase from that effect, but we'll talk about when we get there. Alright, so now into the super rare, we have Neo Kaiser Seahorse. This is a dragon tuner now. Okay, that's a bit of a change in terms of its typing. So it's a level 4 dragon tuner. If you control a Blue Eyes White Dragon, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can target a light tuner you control and increase or decrease its level by 1. I'm guessing that you're more likely going to use the decrease effect on itself, because this is technically a tuner as well. And then this plus one of your level 1 tuner plus the Blue Eyes White Dragon will equal to 12, so you can synchro into some of your synchro level 12s. Okay, that's pretty nice as well. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send a Blue Eyes monster or a monster that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to the graveyard. So this acts as a pseudo Foolish Burial for you. Then we have Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons. This is a really awesome card in the deck. It special summons out one Blue Eyes monster from your deck, graveyard, or banishment. But if you control no Blue Eyes White Dragon, you can only special summon out Blue Eyes White Dragon with this effect. Now, also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except for Dragon, so it does have an extra deck Dragon-based restriction in here. And in addition to just giving you free access to a Blue Eyes White Dragon or recurring one of your Blue Eyes White Dragon that's been banished, you get to banish this card and use it like a polymerization. So you can banish this card from your graveyard and use it like a polymerization. Fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field, including a Blue Eyes monster. And you can only use one. You can only use one Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons effect per turn, and only once that turn. So it's one effect once per turn. And we have a trap card, Majesties of the White Dragon. Oh, I like this card. Show up to 3 Blue Eyes White Dragon in your hand, face up on their monster zones, or in your graveyard, then destroy an equal number of cards your opponent controls. This is a non-targeting based destruction. Very, very useful. On top of that, I think a lot of these Blue Eyes support and a lot of these spells and trap cards, they have a graveyard effect that performs additional summoning. This one is going to perform an additional ritual summon. So you can banish this card from your graveyard, ritual summon one ritual monster from your hand by attributing Blue Eyes White Dragons from your hand or field whose level equals its level. I think those are all the new cards. We're into the actual deck now. So we have Blue Eyes White Dragon. This is from the Legend of Blue Eyes art. We have the tablet art of Blue Eyes White Dragon. And then we have the Blue Eyes White Dragon from the Dark Side of Dimensions. Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, which originally was also from the Dark Side of Dimensions. Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. This is Kaiba's Jet as a monster form, but this is actually a very, very useful card because it will summon itself back from the graveyard or from your hand if a card is destroyed. Now, it only works if you have Blue Eyes White Dragon in your field or in your graveyard, so that you don't see this card basically being splashed into every other deck. It has to be within a Blue Eyes deck. Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon. If you guys don't know what this card does, if this card is special summoned, you can add a ritual or a polymerization from your deck to your hand. Alright, so this is going to help facilitate the alternative lines of Blue Eyes, such as if you're going to focus more on the fusion-based plays or you're going to focus on the ritual-based plays, then this might be one of the more essential cards for you to have. And who could forget the Dragon Spirit of White? This is always treated as a Blue Eyes card. This card is actually treated as a normal monster while in your hand or in graveyard. When this card is normal or special summon, target a spell or trap card your opponent controls and banishes, so this is going to be acting as some of your spell and trap card removal. And of course, you can tribute this card if your opponent controls a monster, and you can special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand. So it'll help you dodge effects or maybe even push for more damage. Here we have the Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon, one of the scariest monsters in the entire game because your opponent cannot target this with card effects, and nor can they destroy this card with card effects. And if this card attacks a defense position monster, it deals piercing damage and is also double damage on the piercing attack. And Blue Eyes Chaos Dragon, another Chaos Form based ritual. Same level of protection, cannot target this with card effects and cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. If you ritual summon this using a Blue Eyes White Dragon, when it declares an attack, you can change the battle positions of as many monster opponent controls, and then if you do, all of those attack and defense become 0. And also, you can inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. This is ridiculously strong if you ask me. Now we have a classic of White Stone of Legend. Whenever this card is sent to the graveyard, you have to add a Blue Eyes White Dragon. It's a mandatory effect, but it adds it from the deck. Then you have White Stone of Ancients. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it's sent to this turn, you can special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. And Sage with Eyes of Blue. This is one of the key starting plays of the entire deck. Using this card, you can add the Maiden of White into your hand. That will lead to the True Light, and from the True Light, you get to go into any of your other Blue Eyes spells and traps that can further push your play. And not to mention, this is of course a light level 1 spellcaster tuner, which can also jump right into link summoning your spirit with Eyes of Blue. But don't forget, most of these monsters with Eyes of Blue have additional effects. This one, you can target one monster on your side of the field, and if you do, you can send it to the graveyard and you get a special summon out a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. Very, very strong stuff. And there's 3 copies of it. And then there's Masters with Eyes of Blue. Now, if you normal summon out this one, you get to target one of your level 1 light tuners in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, such as your Effect Veiler, your Sages, maybe your Maiden of White, if you want to reset your True Light in case the True Light did get sent to the graveyard. Then there's Dictator of D. It has a very unique effect where if you control Blue Eyes White Dragon, you get to choose the attack targets for your opponent's attack. So this card will more or less be protected. Your opponent has to basically attack into the highest monster for the most cases because you're going to make it so. Now, on top of that, you can send Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand or deck to the graveyard to special summon out this card. And on top of that, you can also send a Blue Eyes White Dragon or a card that mentions it to target a Blue Eyes monster in your graveyard to special summon that card back onto the field. So you can still get a lot of free special summon based plays from that alone. And this is also a level 4 lower spellcaster, so it can also go into the Dragon Spirit of White. And there's 2 copies of it. Now we go for some of the disruption from hand. We have a Nibiru, the Primal Being. And interesting note, this is a level 11 monster, so you can technically summon this card and use one of your level 1 tuners and make the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, the card that negates any activation related to adding cards from the deck, special summoning from the deck, or sending a card from the deck to the graveyard. And this is Effect Veiler. You send this card to the graveyard during your opponent's main phase to negate a monster on the field. And spell cards with Chaos Form to perform those Chaos Ritual summonings. And then we have Ultimate Fusion. Now, this is a very scary card because not only is it a fusion card, but it also acts as destruction if you use Blue Eyes White Dragons or Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon on the field, and they will result in cards being destroyed during the resolution on top of the summon. Melodies of Awakening Dragon, a way to add your 3,000 attack monsters into your hand with 2,500 defense or less, which is Blue Eyes White Dragons. There's the Mausoleum of White. Now, what does this card do? It provides you with additional normal summons of Light Tuner monsters. So you get one additional Light Tuner normal summon, which is really, really awesome and very, very key here, which is why you can essentially get 2 normal summons out of this deck thanks to this spell card. And this card is now searchable thanks to the Spirit of Eyes of Blue. And what really matters here on top of that is that because you can send a normal monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard to boost the targeted monster's attack by 100 times its level. So what's really key here is that you can use the Mausoleum of White to send a Blue Eyes White Dragon, which further synergizes the Spirit with Eyes of Blue. And so you can summon that back, and if the entire line revolved around using the Maiden of White, that also leads to the Maiden of White being summoned back from the graveyard on top of it. So this is a really, really key card. Then we have Trade-In to put your extra level 8 monsters into the graveyard to turn them into 2 cards that you can draw. Burst Stream of Destruction, searchable from the Mausoleum of White. Call by the Grave, pretty classic card to kind of stop your opponent's disruption from hand. And there's True Light. Now this card, you only really need 1 copy because Maiden of White is able to replace it back from the graveyard onto the field. Any additional copies of this card could lead to your field being destroyed and multiple opportunities for your opponent to destroy it. Because if this card ever gets sent to the graveyard, you have to destroy all monsters you control. So this is a very dangerous card, but the longer you keep this card on the field, the more advantage you're going to be able to receive. Then there's the Ultimate Creature of Destruction. Now, target a Blue Eyes monster you control. This turn, that face-up monster is unaffected by card effects except its own, and it cannot be destroyed by battle. And any monster it battles gets destroyed at the end of the damage step. While this card is in your graveyard, if you normal or special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon, you get to set this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. So this card ultimately does make your Blue Eyes White Dragon the Ultimate Creature of Destruction. Then there's Destined Rivals, and I can't believe I actually haven't read this card before, but if you control a Blue Eyes White Dragon or a Dark Magician, negate the effects of all face-up monster opponent controls until the end of this turn. It doesn't say current, so because it doesn't say current, for the entire turn, your opponent is essentially under a skill drain, which is pretty crazy, which is very, very powerful. Infinite Impermanence, I think this card requires very little introduction. As for the remainder of the extra deck, we have Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. There is Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, so very similar recipe to the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, except that this one does have effects. During the end of the damage step, if this Fusion Summon card attacked, and this is the only face-up card you control, you can send a Blue Eyes Fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, and it can make an attack in a row. You can use this effect of Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon twice per turn. It kind of acts as each of these heads get 1 attack on their own. And when a card or effect is activated that targets a Blue Eyes monster you control, quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. So if this card is placed into the graveyard, it's going to matter a lot. And the card that can do that would be the Wishes for Eyes of Blue. But there's also the Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon in case you only have 2 Blue Eyes and you need some form of removal against your opponent. And this card cannot be destroyed by battle, which is also very, very awesome. But anything that this card battles, it gets banished. So this Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon, another card that works with the Wishes for Eyes of Blue. Why? So this card has 2 summoning methods, one being that you can perform a proper fusion summon, the other being you can special summon this card from your extra deck by tributing a Blue Eyes White Dragon equipped with a fusion monster. And, well, Wishes for Eyes of Blue automatically set that up. And this is going to be one of your most aggressive powerhouse monsters because, number 1, it is unaffected by trap effects or trap cards, ultimately protecting you from anything like Mirror Force. It can attack all monsters your opponent controls quite a lot. I mean, this is 3,400. It's going to punch through most of your opponent's monsters. And once per turn, at the end of the damage step, if this card battled, you can target 1 trap card in your graveyard and reset it, such as Infinite Impermanence. Imagine getting back your Destined Rivals just because you managed to successfully land an attack with this card. This card is really, really awesome. But again, one thing about the summoning clause of this card is that it must first be fusion summoned. The first B means that if you summon it out correctly the first time, you're able to resummon it back out of the graveyard, which also works with the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. So if you set that up, it's going to matter. Then we have the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. Of course, this is one of the key monsters of the deck, especially if you want to play a synchro-based variant. Neither player can special summon 2 or more monsters at the exact same time. And once per turn, if your opponent activates a card or effect in the graveyard, you get to negate the activation. So this is why it's really strong. But on top of that, this is a card that can kind of tag out some of your extra deck monsters. So you can tribute this Synchro Summon card, special summon 1 Light Dragon Synchro monster from your extra deck in defense position. In this day and age, there's a lot more dragons available that meets that criteria. And this is one of those dragons. This is Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. If this card is special summoned until the end of the next turn, neither player can target dragon monsters you currently control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by card effects. And once per turn during the standby phase, you can target a normal monster in your graveyard and special summon. So this is one way to kind of revive Blue Eyes White Dragons and get that protection too. And it won't be destroyed by the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragons effect. So that's one way to kind of min-max it here. And we have Heraldic Seal of Heavenly Spheres, a generic Link to Dragon monster. By generic, I mean it's for dragons only. It's the dragons' go-to Link monsters if they have 2 dragons on the field, because this card can return cards that are face up on the field back into the hand by tributing out one of your monsters. And if this card itself is tributed, and it can tribute itself, you could summon out more dragons from the deck in the new chain. And I think that's it. So we also get a Duel Links promo card, a Master Duel card, and a Blue Eyes White Destiny structure deck. Well, I guess a structure deck Blue Eyes White Destiny promo card. So 2 days have passed since I've opened up the structure deck of Blue Eyes White Destiny, and I finally completed the build. I had to go around collecting some cards, get a haircut, and here we are. So I've sleeved up the entire deck in white and yellow. Yellow for the extra deck, white for the main deck. But there's also these red sleeves. The red sleeves are there just to highlight the cards are not part of the structure deck. And I'll tell you where you guys can get them. But normally, if you're going to be competing in any level of tournament play, all your sleeves will have to be the same color and completely uniform. All right, follow the official tournament policy and guidelines. So why don't we get started with the monster spells and traps, and then we'll go into the extra deck. To start things off, I have 2 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon. To kind of keep it simple and short, I'm not playing a 3rd copy because this is a synchro-centric build, and I will be more focused on summoning the card from the graveyard from the deck. So that's the key focus in terms of the strategy. Aside from that, the Blue Eyes White Dragon is still the most powerful normal monster in the entire game. So, in a worst case scenario, you can still use it for attacking purposes. And then we have the Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. Now, this is a bit of a tech choice for me because I enjoy the additional protection, but as well as this card can be summoned through Sage with Eyes of Blue. And if a card does get destroyed while this card is in the graveyard or in your hand while there's a Blue Eyes on the field or in the graveyard, you can summon this card back from either the hand or the graveyard, and now it's going to throw off your opponent a little bit because all of your other cards cannot be destroyed by card effects. And on top of that, if you do battle with this card, the danger is at the start of the damage step, if this card battles, target 1 card on the field that your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Yes, it's going to throw off your opponent's battle phase, and that's also a damage step effect. Next, we have 3 copies of Maiden of White. She is a fantastic card, one of the key new starters of the deck, because she can provide you access with True Light by sending herself from the field or hand to the graveyard, and the copy of True Light can come from the graveyard, the hand, the deck, and it gets placed straight onto the field face up, and that is fantastic. Now, since you put her into the graveyard, you can still resummon this card by simply special summoning a Blue Eyes White Dragon. She'll tag along, summon herself out, and all of a sudden, you have enough materials to perform a level 9 Synchro Summon, which is what this deck is about. Next, we play 3 copies of Sage with Eyes of Blue because immediately this card just gives us access to adding a Maiden of White, because on the normal summon of this card, you get to add a level 1 Light Tuner into your hand. So she's inclusive of that. You can also add Effect Veiler, Master with Eyes of Blue. So just the summon of this card is already really, really strong. And then on top of that, you can discard this card, target one of your effect monsters, and if you do so and it does resolve, send that card to the graveyard, and you get to summon out a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. That includes Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. For me, you can go for any of the other Blue Eyes monsters as well, even Blue Eyes White Dragon, but that's why this card is extremely powerful. So you want to find ways to retrieve this card into your hand, and that's actually where the Master with Eyes of Blue come in. This is likely as a part of the combo piece that I use, because if you normal summon out this card, you can target 1 level 1 Light Tuner from your graveyard and add it back to your hand. And for me, typically, that's going to either be the Maiden of White or the Sage with Eyes of Blue. And if this card's in the graveyard, acts as a way to summon out a Blue Eyes White Dragon simply by, again, targeting an effect monster on the field, and then you get to shuffle the Master with Eyes of Blue back into the deck, and that monster, you send it to the graveyard, and you can summon out a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the graveyard. So this is a way to summon out the Blue Eyes from the graveyard. Now the next card here is not part of the Blue Eyes White Destiny structure deck. This is going to be Primite Dragon Ether Beryl. This is from the latest set of Supreme Darkness. So Ether Beryl here is part of the Primite strategy, and Primates work well with the normal monster strategies. So we have Blue Eyes White Dragon as our core normal monster, and we want to summon that card as much as possible, and Primate do have access to that. But on top of that, the Primite Dragons here and the Primite strategy is here to help provide us with Primite Drill Beam to help us get additional negates, and Primate Lordly Load to kind of help us cycle into this strategy. And one other thing that's really fantastic about this card is also a level 4 dragon, so this card can be used as link material for the Spirit with Eyes of Blue. And right now we're going to go to a series of disruption from hand. We have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring that we want to disrupt our opponent from getting access to cards from their deck, whether it be adding it from their deck to their hand, summoning from their deck, or sending a card from their deck to the graveyard. Ash Blossom is there to stop that. We have 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Aside from negating your opponent's monster during their main phase, this card, if you can summon this card out, you can also turn this again into Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Luckily, this card is searchable through the Sage with Eyes of Blue. Then we have 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being, a way to punish your opponent if they commit to many summons, 5 summons on their turn, and then you get to tribute everything on the field to summon out a Nibiru the Primal Being here, and a Primal Being token to your opponent's side of the field, which has the stats equal to everything that has been tributed, at least based on their original stat line. Then we have 3 copies of Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, another disruption from hand where you have to discard this card. Now this card has many printings. The easiest way to acquire it, I would say, is from Rarity Collection 1. Now, whenever your opponent activates something that would rely on the graveyard, say summon from the graveyard, add back from the graveyard, or put a card back from the graveyard to the deck, then this is where this comes in. And the reason why I'm playing this is because I don't want my opponent to affect me with their bestial cards, banishing out my cards before I get proper use of them, or I don't want my opponent to get access to their Fiendsmith cards, such as Fiendsmith Engraver, and they want to summon it back. Well, what if I just didn't let it happen, so I don't have to see where his combo lines end up? So that's why we're choosing to play Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. For spell cards, we gotta talk about the Witches for Eyes of Blue. This card is fantastic, one of the most powerful plays in the entire deck, and we are attempting to resolve this as much as we can. So I would prioritize this spell card over most of the other searches in the deck. So if you're predicting that your opponent might have an Ash Blossom and you want to play around said card, it's best to just normal summon out, say, a Sage with Eyes of Blue, and maybe see if there's a response from your opponent, because you definitely don't want this card to be responded to with an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This card does come with a cost. It does have a discard, so if they get that discard, and so if they do have Ash and you discard a card and play this card, you're trading it 2 for 1. You're losing this card and the card you discarded, and they only discarded an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. So there is a huge cost. So it does feel like it's a little bit high risk, high reward in that regard, but this card is fantastic. Getting access to add a level 1 Light Tuner and a spell trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon. All of these cards that mentioned Blue Eyes White Dragon that are spells and traps, they're all high impact cards. So getting access to them is fantastic, such as Ultimate Fusion, Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons, and even the Majesty of the White Dragons. These are all very, very strong cards. Okay, so you definitely want access to them, and don't forget to use the other effect in the graveyard where you banish this, target a Blue Eyes, and equip a fusion. It's very pivotal that you do get rid of this card out of the graveyard, because True Light can't really set this card again if this card's already in the graveyard. True Light can only set onto the field a spell or trap card that mentioned Blue Eyes White Dragon as long as you don't already control it and you don't have it in the graveyard. So there's conditions to that. So you want to get that set up. And that setup also provides you with a quick, easy access to summoning up Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. And once you perform the summon of the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon, you can immediately just load it into the graveyard, and you can have easy access to that card via a Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. Next, we have 1 copy of Mausoleum in white. Any of your level 4 or lower spellcasters or dragon monsters will automatically lead you into this card, because they're going to link summon into Spirit with Eyes of Blue, and this is automatically added into your hand. So you immediately have access to this. This will automatically provide you with the ability to send a Blue Eyes White Dragon into the graveyard by targeting one of your own monsters and boosting their attack by its level. So It's 800 attack boost. But the other key thing about this card is that it does provide you with additional normal summon of a level 1 light monster. So whether it be your Sage with Eyes of Blue, your Master with Eyes of Blue, you're able to generate the additional summon, and that could be used for tuning purposes or fetching back resources or adding resources from your deck or graveyard. So that's why this is very key here. If this card leaves the field, you can banish it from the graveyard and add a Burst Stream of Destruction. Unfortunately, that part is not going to be accessible within this deck because I don't play Burst Stream of Destruction. Next, we have one copy of Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons. Now, this card doesn't summon out Blue Eyes White Dragon. Well, it can, but it summons out Blue Eyes monsters, okay, to be more specific, and it can summon it back from the deck, the graveyard, or banishment. But if you don't control Blue Eyes White Dragon, you can only summon out Blue Eyes White Dragon. So if you have a Blue Eyes White Dragon, you can go for all of the other monsters. But the key thing here is you can also summon back from Banish, and I think that is a very key part of this, because in case your dragons do get banished, this is one way to actually recover them. And on top of that, this also has a fusion-based effect, because if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish it and then perform a fusion summon of one fusion monster from your extract using monsters you control, including one Blue Eyes monster. So this card is one of the ways to generate extra monsters. For me, it's only going to be there to just put out a level 8, and then I'm going to use that as a way to perform synchro summoning, because the monster you summon out is in defense position. One copy of Ultimate Fusion. Now this is an awesome card. I love setting this card and just performing random fusions against my opponent when they're least suspecting it, because Ultimate Fusion uses the hand, field, and graveyard for fusion material, and it puts them back into the deck as long as you summon out a monster that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon or Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon as the material. This is one way where you can fuse into Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon by using a regular Blue Eyes monster, and perhaps say you overexpended your Blue Eyes Spirit Dragons, you can use that to kind of put them back into the deck. Or if you use Blue Eyes White Dragons on the field, now this is out acting as a destruction based card. And ultimately, this card provides you with both recovery and a monster at the same time, and potentially even a destruction-based effect if you're able to use Blue Eyes White Dragon or Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon on your side of the field as the fusion material. The next spell card here is going to be a Primite Lordly Load. This is from Rage of the Abyss, and you can really only acquire it from Rage of the Abyss. I was very fortunate that I went in so many boxes, and so I have 3 copies of this card. For this particular card, you can use this upon activation. You get to add a Primite card from your deck to your hand, and that's a mandatory effect. If you have nothing to add, you can't even activate this card, so just keep that in mind. And the key thing here is that you can add Primite Dragon Ether Beryl, and Primite Dragon Ether Beryl will be able to add Primite Drill Beam, and therefore you have access to the entire Primite strategy just from one play. But similarly, if you have Primite Dragon Ether Beryl, you can summon that card, set the Primite Lordly Load face down, and then activate the Primite Lordly Load to add the Primite Drill Beam. So it's kind of in a little bit of a full circle here that they're always going to have access to each other. Now, the other key effect of Primite Lordly Load, you can declare one normal monster card name, special summon out that normal monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard in defense position, but also you cannot activate the effects of special summon monsters on the field this turn. This particular effect you will probably use at the very end so that you don't lock out your own plays because you've activated this card preemptively. In addition to that, all of your normal monsters and Primite monsters, they gain 300 attack for each of the normal monsters that have different names in your graveyard. Now, we talked about Primite Drill Beam for a few times now, so here's the one copy of Primite Drill Beam that I am currently playing. This card is really, really strong and one of the strongest negations in the entire game. So how does it work? Now, it looks complicated in terms of how you activate the card, but you either reveal to your opponent a Primite card in your hand or a normal monster in your hand, except for Drill Beam. But if you control, say, a normal monster or a level 5 or higher Primite monster, except a token, you can activate this card without revealing anything. And what does it do? You target a face-up card on the field, negate its effects, and then banish it. And one of the best parts about this card is that if you control a Primate monster, you get to reset this card back onto the field. So the Primate cards are just so strong, and with Primate Dragon Ether Beryl adding itself back from the graveyard every single one of your turns, that means constantly cycling a quick play negation every time it gets back to our turn. And this card is also from Rage of the Abyss. Next card here, we have one Synchro Rumble. You can only acquire this card from Age of Overlord. It has not been reprinted yet. And this card, by playing it, we are automatically hinting that yes, we are playing Crimson Dragon as one of our key focuses within our Synchro strategy. So what does this card do? You get to target a tuner or a level 7 or 8 Synchro Dragon monster in your graveyard and special summon in defense position. But it does put a restriction on you where you can only special summon from your extra deck Synchro monsters for the rest of the turn. Now, if a level 7 or 8 Synchro Dragon monster or Crimson Dragon you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to banish this card from your graveyard instead. Now, having this card in your graveyard is very, very useful in the case that, hey, your opponent activates a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit in chain to your Crimson Dragon and destroys it, yeah, then you would lose your Crimson Dragon, but this card will automatically protect you from that scenario. So that's why this is also very good, and getting you a level 1 tuner summoned back from the graveyard immediately as a part of your strategy, this is just giving you free resources. One, Call by the Grave to negate some of the stuff that your opponent activates from the graveyard, including disruptions from hand. And into the trap card lineup, we have one True Light. This card is super, super strong, prevents your Blue Eyes White Dragons from being targeted, so that's something that a lot of people kind of overlook sometimes. On the other hand, if this card is sent to the graveyard from your spawn trap zone, destroy all monsters you control. When this card hits the graveyard, is essentially your board is about to get hit by a white hole. Every monster you control is about to be destroyed. Okay, so that is one of the most dangerous things that can happen. So you want to protect this card as much as you can. If this card stays on the field for a prolonged period of time, you get to special summon your Blue Eyes White Dragons from your hand or graveyard. And I think one of the key things here is that you get to constantly set spells and trap cards from your deck to mention Blue Eyes White Dragon. And that's where you can just really push the strategy forward. I'm personally playing one copy of Majesties of the White Dragon. Sometimes I want to have additional disruption against my opponent by simply just showing Blue Eyes White Dragon from my hand deck or graveyard, and then that's going to provide me with a non-target based destruction. Now, I'm not playing any sort of ritual, so the ritual part of this card will not matter to me. And finally, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence to answer anything with effects that I find to be threatening against the thing that I'm trying to establish. So for the extra deck, I already talked about most of the ones that are from the structure deck, so I'm not going to kind of go over it again. But 1 copies of Indigo Eye Silver Dragon. This card is very strong, and I'm using it as a low resource way to execute 8,000 damage while negating my opponent's entire field. Or I might even open it just to negate the opponent's field so that my other plays can go through. 3 copies of Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. We are a synchro-based play. We are a synchro-centric deck, so I have to play 3 copies of this, and I'm focusing more onto the Spirit Dragon's effects ability to summon out other light dragon synchro monsters from my extra deck. So that's one of the key effects I'm going to be using. You're going to need all 3. You're going to burn through all 3. The combo is going to highlight that, but that's what this is focused on. Next, we have Light Storm Dragon. This card is from Supreme Darkness as a common, so pretty easy to acquire. You can just go to your locals and ask around. But this particular card, if you special summon this card, target spells and traps on the field up to the number of normal monsters in your graveyard +1. So you can have 0 plus 1 still 1. So at the very least, it can destroy 1 spell or trap card. But if you have 1 Blue Eyes White Dragon, that means it's going to be 2. If you have 2 Blue Eyes White Dragon, that is going to be 3. So this can pop up to 3 cards. This can destroy up to 3 cards. This can destroy up to 3 spells and trap cards alone. And it's one of the follow-up plays for me. So a comparable play would be... So a play that I would attempt to do with this card is that if I leave a Blue Eye Spirit Dragon that's been properly synchro summoned, I would activate that to summon out the Light Storm Dragon to destroy spells and traps my opponent has just freshly set. And then... on my turn, now I have a much easier time going into main phase without worrying about my opponent's spells and traps. For the next 4 synchro monsters, we have Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon and Crimson Dragon. These 2 monsters are going to be specifically summoned out directly through the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. And the next 2, we have the Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon and the Cosmic Blazar Dragon. These ones will not be summoned through the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. Well, for one, they must be synchro summoned, and they're going to be summoned through the effect of Crimson Dragon, targeting one of the level 12 synchro monsters, which will be the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Or if one of these already exists on the field and we manage to resummon out the Crimson Dragon, then that's how we're going to be working around to get that. Let's talk about the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. This is an on-field negation that negates the activation of any of your opponent's card that activates on the field, and it'll boost itself by 1,000 attack points. So this is really, really strong. It'll negate the activation, which is fantastic. If this card is destroyed, you will be able to summon back one of your light dragon monsters from the graveyard. So this is going to be useful for bringing back, say, monsters like Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon, which we will showcase in a bit. It is right here. And as for Crimson Dragon, this is again one of your ways to help you get access into the Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon and the Cosmic Blazar Dragon. But the two that should be summoned out first together in terms of a pair, the first one's going to be the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon and the Crimson Dragon, and of the two here that should be summoned out first, it's going to be the Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon, because this card protects your monsters and all of your cards from being destroyed once. And the reason why that matters is because Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon contains a clause where the monster summoned out through its effects, such as if I go directly from the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon to Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon, during the end phase it would destroy itself, and therefore we can't make use of the negation effect. So by summoning out Crimson Dragon going into the Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon during the end phase, when the destruction is attempted from the effect of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, the Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon will be able to protect it from being destroyed and ultimately bypassing that. And that's why we don't go for the Cosmic Blazar first, because if we enter Cosmic Blazar first, that's going to end up letting our Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon being destroyed. But if you're okay with that, then you might end up with the Cosmic Blazar Dragon instead, and since this is one of the stickiest monsters on the field, since by the cost of its negation effect, this card will banish itself until the end phase and come back later on, regardless if it is negated or not. Aside from just summoning these cards onto the field, what do they actually offer? Now, this one we already mentioned offers the protection, but this is also a monster effect negation, and also destroys a card on the field if he's managed to do so. And then there is the Cosmic Blazar Dragon. This is also a negation. It negates basically when your opponent activates a card effect, you negate the activation and destroy that card. If your opponent would summon a monster, you can negate the summon and destroy that card. This is very much similar to and almost comparable to a Solemn Judgment, but in terms of a monster. So we have card activation on field negation, monster effect negation, as well as negation for basically any type of activation and the attacking. So how do you get these cards? Crimson Dragon and Cosmic Blazar Dragon, you can find both of these, if you're lucky, within a 25th anniversary tin of Dueling Mirrors. And as for the Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon, this one's much older, from a mega pack of 2017. So this one you might have to kind of look through your old collections to try to find this one. For the fusion lineup, I have the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon and Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. So for these particular monsters, the Tyrant Dragon run 2 copies because this card is fairly easy to fusion summon, requiring only a Blue Eyes White Dragon and a Dragon monster. So Ultimate Fusion is already one very easy way to get access to this monster. But the other way is to just tribute a Blue Eyes White Dragon equipped with a fusion monster. So that means if you use the Wishes for Eyes of Blue and equip, say, the Neo Ultimate Blue Eyes White Dragon, that Blue Eyes automatically counts for it. And luckily this is level 8, so then I can use this as a synchro material with one of the light spellcaster tuners and immediately go into our Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. But you might be wondering, what's the point of that? Because this card has a must first be either fusion summon or special summon. Once you summon this card out properly once, you're going to be able to special summon it back from the graveyard. So that's the purpose of kind of preloading one into the graveyard. As for the Neo Ultimate Blue Eyes White Dragon, unfortunately, I will not be able to summon out this card because I am missing the last Blue Eyes White Dragon, but this is mainly for the protection effect for this particular build. For the remaining monsters in the extract, we have 3 Link monsters, 2 copies of the Spirit with Eyes of Blue, and 1 copy of Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres. So the Spirit with Eyes of Blue, the first copy is likely going to be used to set up the plays and get access to Mausoleum of White. And the second copy is just so that you can turn any of your spellcaster tuners or your level 4 lower dragon monsters, turn it into the Spirit with Eyes of Blue, and eventually lead this monster using its effect, tributing it, and turning it into a Blue Eyes White Dragon to help recover some of your plays. So that's kind of the purpose of this one. As for Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres, it's the go-to 2 dragon monsters into Hieratic Seal because this has the effect to return a face-up card on the field back into the hand while tributing a monster from the field or hand. Now, tributing itself, however, if this card ever gets tributed, it will activate in a new chain to summon out any dragon monster from your deck that is a legal target. And that's it for the deck. So I'm going to demonstrate the Synchro Line combo, which generates 3 level 12 monsters over the course of 2 turns. Well, a turn and a half, because we're only really using the draw phase to get the last monster. But here we go. We're going to start off with a Maiden in White or a Sage with Eyes of Blue, because either or they kind of lead to each other. So we're going to send the Maiden of White into the graveyard and putting the True Light onto the field. That just places it onto the field. And we're going to activate the True Light, and that's going to set wishes for Eyes of Blue. And we're going to activate the wishes for Eyes of Blue, and then we're going to pay the cost, sending the Nibiru into our graveyard. Now, this particular part, the ghost spells, they just act as the additional cards that can be part of your starting hand. And now we're going to add the Sage plus a Roar. If you don't have any type of follow-up, go for the Roar, because it will provide you with a Blue Eyes White Dragon, and that can still lead into some extra deck-based plays. Otherwise, you can definitely search for some more utility cards to keep your opponent from gaining control of the game state. Now next, we're going to provide ourselves with a normal summon of the Sage with Eyes of Blue, and that's going to add the Master with Eyes of Blue into our hand. We're going to start our link play, we're going to get access to our extra deck, and we're going to link summon into our Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Through that effect, we're going to use that to add the Mausoleum of White. Very important that we get access to this card, because that's what loads our first Blue Eyes into the graveyard. Now, we're going to activate the Mausoleum of White, and we're going to use the effect, and then we're going to target the Spirit with Eyes of Blue and send a Blue Eyes White Dragon to boost the attack of that monster. Now that we have a Blue Eyes White Dragon in the graveyard, Spirit with Eyes of Blue can summon back something from the graveyard that is a Blue Eyes monster. It can also summon something from the hand as well. We're going to activate the card effect, and that's going to summon back our Blue Eyes White Dragon. It's a cost to send it to the graveyard, and because a Blue Eyes White Dragon was just special summon, our Maiden now gets to come back out as well and special summon herself onto the field. Now note, while the Spirit with Eyes of Blue is on the field, you can't special summon anything but Dragon Monster. So if you leave this card on the field and you summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon, the Maiden will not tag along. Okay, that's one of the key things that people might misplay on if you want to make sure that you get access to the tuner. So now that we get to the Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field, we're going to activate the wishes for Eyes of Blue, and then we're going to equip ourselves now with the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and that's going to be equipped to the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now, we're not going to perform our Synchro just yet. We have our additional normal summon, so we're going to normal summon out our Master with Eyes of Blue, and through that effect, we're going to add back the Sage into our hand. So our hand is always kind of looking like there's 5 cards stuck in there all the time, and we're going to take the Master and the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and that's going to help us perform our first Synchro summon into the very first Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. And now that we have this, we're going to set up our next monster, which is through the Sage with Eyes of Blue. We're going to activate the Sage with Eyes of Blue, targeting the Maiden of White. If there's no further chain, we're going to chain the Maiden of White to summon something back from the graveyard. Now note that when you activate the Sage, you have to send it to the graveyard for the cost, and therefore Sage is in there. So Maiden of White is going to summon back the Sage. So Chainlink 1 is going to be Sage, Chainlink 2 is going to be Maiden of White, Maiden of White is going to summon the Sage with Eyes of Blue, and then Chainlink 1 is going to resolve, sending the Maiden of White into the graveyard, summoning a Blue Eyes monster from the deck, and the monster we're going for is going to be Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. This provides us with additional follow-up in case that we do get cards destroyed. Now we take these 2 monsters, and we perform another Synchro Summon into another Spirit Dragon. So our hand still looks something like this. We're going to activate the first Spirit Dragon, we're going to send it to the graveyard, and that's going to summon out our first Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon in defense mode. And now we're going to activate this Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. This one's going to summon into our Crimson Dragon. Now we're going to the 5Ds era. Crimson Dragon effect on summon is going to help us add a Synchro Rumble into our hand. So this is going to provide us with another tuner summon. So we have a tuner summon and a Blue Eye summon, which is going to provide us with the additional level 9. We're going to now activate the Crimson Dragon, targeting the Ultimate Spirit Dragon. And this is going to go back into the extra deck, summoning out Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon. And if you want to continue the play here, this is where you activate like the Roar. Roar is going to be able to special summon out the Blue Eyes from the deck, alright? And now we can activate Synchro Rumble. Remember, when you activate Synchro Rumble, it locks your extra deck into Synchro monsters only. And so, with that, we're going to summon back our Sage. And then this is going to perform another Synchro Summon to our third copy of the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. And this is essentially the point where we'll pass our turn, and whatever extra cards you have that can protect your field, you put them face down, or for in this instance, there's 3 ghost spells. But if you look at the available cards on the field, so far we have protection for Blue Eyes monsters from being targeted. That's coming from the Neo Blue Eyes. And if anything gets destroyed, we also have Graveyard Disruption that comes from the Jet Dragon summoning itself out and protecting the entire field from destruction. When we get to the end phase, Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon's going to attempt to destroy itself, but that's going to be protected by Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon, because all cards on the field on your side, if it would be destroyed the first time, it will not be, therefore bypassing the destruction from the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. And once we pass turn to the opponent, we go into the draw phase. On draw phase, we're going to activate Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. We're going to send this card to the graveyard, and then we're going to summon out a Crimson Dragon, and we're going to immediately use Crimson Dragon to summon out the Cosmic Blazar Dragon by targeting either of these. And therefore, this is now going to provide you with, well, the ultimate negation right here. It just negates everything and comes back. We have monster effect negation, we have on-field card negation, and we have a bunch of stuff in the graveyard that also acts as disruption. So this is the board that your opponent has to kind of eat into. Not the easiest thing to break for sure. And I guess for additional notes, like, oh, you've burned all your Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, how do you get it back? That's where the Ultimate Fusion comes in. Ultimate Fusion is one of the key cards you're going to need to use to kind of bring everything back together, because Ultimate Fusion now can activate and just put back your Spirit Dragon and a Blue Eyes White Dragon to summon out the Tyrant Dragon, and this will help you reload your Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon back into your extra deck. So the first combo didn't illustrate anything regarding the Primite Dragon. Why is it even in the deck? Well, I'm going to show it to you guys right now. And the second part is that we're going to rotate out the Maiden and switch it with the Sage so that you can see how the 2 different openings kind of end on the same board, essentially. It's just different steps. We're just putting it into different parts of the sequence. So starting play, normal summon out the Primite Dragon Ether Beryl, and using that effect, we're going to set onto the field the Primite Lordly Load, and we're going to activate the Lordly Load to add the Drill Beam into hand. If you're holding a Blue Eyes White Dragon or another Primite Dragon in your hand, this is going to act as a safety net. Otherwise, there are going to be occasions where this card is not going to be activatable. So for now, we're going to now link off our Primite Dragon Ether Beryl, and we're going to summon out Spirit with Eyes of Blue, like this. And then with the Spirit, we're going to add the Mausoleum of White into our hand. We're going to activate the Mausoleum of White so we can get the additional normal summon for our Sage with Eyes of Blue. And we're going to use the Mausoleum also to put the Blue Eyes into the graveyard. But if you're worried about the Mausoleum of White being destroyed, then you should probably start with the summon first of the Sage of Eyes of Blue. And with that, you can use that to add the Maiden of White. Now you can activate the Mausoleum of White to put the Blue Eyes White Dragon into the graveyard to boost the attack of the Spirit. Alright, so from here, we still have the Maiden of White. You can send this to the graveyard now. And this is going to put True Light into your Spell and Trap Zone face up. And you can just now activate the Spirit with Eyes of Blue, and this is going to summon back that Blue Eyes White Dragon, leading to the Maiden of White also being special summoned onto the field. Note that we have not used True Light just yet. We can hold on to the True Light effect and adapt to the situation if needed, but for now we can now perform a Synchro Summon with Maiden of White and the Blue Eyes White Dragon, summoning into the first Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. Now we can also adjust our play here. We're going to go True Light effect, and we're going to set onto the field the Wishes for Eyes of Blue. Now we can activate the Wishes here, and we're just going to send one of our extra cards in our hands to the graveyard, and this is going to help us add 2 cards, Roar and the effect failure. If you already have Roar, then you can definitely add some of the other cards I mentioned, Blue Eyes, just to further extend your play. Now this is the current hand we have right now. And we can just further push it forward by activating the Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons, special summoning out a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the deck. We're going to activate the Wishes for Eyes of Blue, and we're going to now do something a little bit different. I didn't really highlight this in the first combo, but we're going to equip the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon right now, and then we're going to perform a fusion play, or rather a special summon of the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon right now. The reason why you want to do this is so that if your Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon gets destroyed, at the very least, it's going to summon out something that's very, very strong that can provide you back with the True Light Trap in case the True Light Trap got destroyed along the way. Now you can take these two monsters, the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon and the Sage with Eyes of Blue, and we're going to perform another Synchro Summon into another Spirit Dragon. Activate the first Spirit Dragon. First Spirit Dragon is going to special summon into the Crimson Dragon. On the summon of the Crimson Dragon, add to your hand a Synchro Rumble. And then on the second Spirit Dragon, special summon into our Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Now you can immediately just use the Crimson Dragon effect and target the Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. And that's going to summon out your Stardust Silver Divine Dragon. So here you can activate Primite Lordly Load. And this is going to summon back your Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now, none of your card effects can now activate, which is why I'm saying it's a little bit more high risk now. And you get the Blue Eyes White Dragon summoned back out onto the field. Activate the Synchro Rumble. Use that to summon back one of your tuners. And now perform a final Synchro Summon into your last copy of Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. So you're still ending on the triple synchro play. However, you have a lot more going on for you now because now you have access to an Effect Veiler and a Drill Beam, which you will set. So say we set it right here, okay? So this is actually a set card. I'm just keeping it face up so you guys can see what it is. When you pass turn to your opponent, during the draw phase, go for the Spirit Dragon effect, summon into the Crimson Dragon effect, target one of these, and summon into the Blazar. But on top of that, you can also activate True Light to summon back your Blue Eyes White Dragon. Okay, once you get the Blue Eyes White Dragon onto the field here, if you look at the disruption, it is going to be Monster Effect Negation, number 1 right here, on-field card activation negation, which is number 2, number 3, Drill Beam, number 4, Cosmic Blazar, and number 5, Effect Veiler. So 5 known disruptions that they're going to have to play through, which is a lot, considering that all of these monsters have basically 3,000 or more attack, and because of that, they're facing a lot of aggression and pressure just from the turn coming back. So this is why people play this, and Drill Beam is going to essentially reset itself once per turn because another barrel always adds itself back during the standby phase. And that's why it's pretty wild here. And that is all I have for the Structure Deck Blue Eyes White Destiny reveal. If you guys enjoyed my Synchrocentric build, hit that thumbs up and hit subscribe and ding that notification bell. And I think I went through every single card possible here, but I do believe that there's more to explore in the Blue Eyes White Destiny, because you can definitely try go a bit more fusion focus. You can try to go for a rank 8 spam build. These are options that I haven't explored myself, which you guys can definitely take the time to do so. Alright, well, I wish you guys best of luck. Enjoy your Blue Eyes White Dragons, and I'll see you all in the next one.